your friend, your coach, your mentor, Dharam Singh here. I'm very excited today to bring my new guest, another smart person from the universe, Marvin Lazo, and he has done great job in his whatever he's doing, as well as the best thing is he passed his PgMP exam not long ago, 6th of September 2025. So welcome, Marvin. How are you today?
Thank you. Excited to be here. I appreciate you giving me the chance.
My pleasure. I'm very happy to have you here. And I'd like to welcome all of you. Some of you are coming again and enjoying these wonderful webinar sessions with my distinguished guest. I'm honored to be part of your journey. Some of you are coming because you are either my PgMP student, PFMP student, or joining very soon. Marvin was part of my PgMP program. He attended the program. I hope he found it useful. And he can probably talk about his journey. And I asked him. But guys, I'm very happy to welcome you here. And I'm going to make sure that we're going to have an exciting session. And Marvin is going to share a lot of his personal experiences and insights. So just to introduce Marvin, currently Army, US Army?
Air Force. Air Force.
Air Force, yeah, Air Force. I did have many people coming from Army, Air Force, and you guys are doing a great job. And given that it's a Veterans Week, you're not a veteran yet, but soon you will be. But
yeah, it's a given.
Sorry?
I said, yeah, not quite yet, but it's a given. Eventually I'll be.
I'd like to appreciate your services to the country. And just like you, many people are either fighting, supporting, or looking after the country. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I'd like to see your journey from Air Force into professional or civil life, where you will do bigger and better things.
I'm excited for that.
Marvin coming he has program management experience, of course. That's one reason he has done PgMP as well. And he wanted to make a mark when he come out from his Air Force life into the civil life. And he knows the importance of having certificates, having expertise in that area. And so that's the reason Marvin is here, because of his knowledge and experience. The one other thing I liked about him is the experience around strategic communication part. So the topic today is strategic communication architecture, the hidden power behind successful program leadership. So we're going to dive into this. But before that, I like to give an option Marvin to talk about a little bit about himself and tell why people should be staying here to listen to you.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Marvin Lazo. As he mentioned, I'm currently serving in the Air Force. I have 13 years of experience under my belt. I am a Master Sergeant right now. I am PgMP and PMP. Before that, I've had 11 years of application experience, and I've been lucky enough to obtain both certifications within a year span from one another. So the PMP, I received that August 2024, and then the PgMP September 2025. Also, as he mentioned, I have a master's in strategic communication. So all of those things have helped me in the environments that I've led, very diverse environments between military and healthcare. Some like infection prevention and control program, dental readiness assurance program. Those are both military environments in a medical capacity, emergency operations management for an entire installation, and then various clinic transformation and professional development projects and programs. In all of those things, there's always one consistent challenge in every organization, regardless of what level you're at. That's communication. Not as a soft skill, but as an infrastructure. A system failure point that if not managed correctly, then it can definitely disrupt an entire ecosystem within that program. So as we talk about strategic communication, we're not just focusing on plans, timelines, and dashboards, although an important aspect of program leadership, but what keeps it aligned, responsive, and trusted. So my goal is more so to help build real-world mindset for anyone who's aspiring to be a PgMP, anyone currently in that capacity or trying to elevate themselves as a leader. I'll share some moments where I've either made or broken a program.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Along with Marvin, I'm proud supporter of 591 PgMPs. This is around 7%, 8% of global number. Thank you, Marvin, for helping me to grow my numbers. I appreciate your contribution because every PgMP and every PFMP is a great feeling. These are some of the toughest exams. But when my students go out and do the great job and pass exam, it increases my excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last 2 days, I got 2 PFMPs. Now, with their help, I have 188 PFMP. Yesterday, I got 1 PMOCP as well. I'm blessed to have so many successes coming from every part of the world. Many of you, I can see that you already my students or joining my program. I'm excited to take you through the journey and help you out with getting your certificates as soon as possible.
And it's a great program, very thorough from my experience. I learned a lot, and you really touched on everything and provided us with the resources we needed to set ourselves up for success. And the PgMP, definitely a completely different mindset than the PMP, much harder, much more challenging. But with everything that you provided and how you set us up for success, I was able to pretty much ace it. So I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Just a little bit housekeeping. On the chat, I have put few links and few information. Keep an eye on the chat because I'm going to share the PDU code as well a little later. So that's where you're going to see everything. I have provided link to my app, which is very popular now. A lot of people are using it. That's called vCare PM Exam Mentor. It has the PgMP, PFMP, PMP, ACP, PMOCP, some of them, some information, but PgMP, PFMP, and PMP has lots of information, question bank, practice questions, and glossaries, formulas, and domain tip and task, and videos, and my handouts. Lots of information I try to put as part of this app, and very comprehensive. If you do take platinum of 3 months, you get most of the things which I offer in my training program. But only thing you're missing is you're not going to have my support. Support you're going to get anyway, but you don't get to join my programs. Along with the app, along with my class, I'm sure it's going to be very comprehensive for you, especially with the PgMP come with 9 mock exams, PFMP come with 3 exams, and PMP come with 11 exams. So that's something you should not miss if you're preparing for PgMP exam or PFMP or in there. I do have if you just want the exam simulator, I shared some of them. And there are a couple of YouTube channels you definitely want to be there. One is the session I'm going to do now. With today's session is going to be placed on that channel, one of the channel, vCare channel, where I think more than 300 recordings of people like Marvin have already contributed over last 5 years. So my job is to create a knowledge pool available to anyone, anywhere, in the form of any shape. If you're a learner, you're going to learn from people like Marvin and many other people, and that's free education available. So please watch, please read, go through these webinars. Some of the webinars can give you PDUs. So if you watch the video, which is within last 12 months, you can claim 1 PDU. And only thing you have to do, you have to reach out to me. Hey, Dharam, I watched this webinar with so and can I have a PDU? If you're watching this recording or listening, you can always reach out to me. Hey, Dharam, the date and the title and whatever you learned. I like to know what you learned from the session, and then I will be happy to offer you 1 PDU. Okay. All right. And one of the YouTube channel is where I am interviewing, and not actually, I'm collecting a lot of knowledge from Thomas Valente. He's from Germany. He's the founder of PMI's German chapter, and has contributed almost 70 webinars, 70 podcasts. And Justin Buckwalter, 35 of them, and many other contributors. So there's a lot of free knowledge available for you. So no obligation, nothing. You go and watch them, read them, learn them from them, and enjoy growing your life. Please feel free to put your questions on the question pad. Is there an option for you to ask question to Marvin, and then when you feel like, and to me, I will be happy to answer the questions. You want to answer now or later, I will be okay with that. And if you are hearing everything clear, you may like to say hello on the question pad so that I know you are connected. If you want to say on the question pad that I'm here, I'm going to do my PgMP, PFMP, or PMOCP, I'd love to see that. If you can say on the question pad while I'm getting myself ready and start asking questions with Marvin. So more you're going to ask, more you're going to information put, you're going to make it interactive, you will feel part of this journey. Okay, so I can see some people have start putting their responses, and please keep writing on the question pad. Now Marvin is going to share his insights. So I do have lots of questions. I do have questions which were given as part of the registration. I'll bring those questions as and when the right time come. But if you have any question while we're talking, please put them on the question pad. Okay, Marvin, anything else before I get started?
No, I'm ready to go.
You ready to go? Everybody ready to go? Let's start. How does strategic communication architecture evaluate program leadership beyond traditional communication planning? And what does it look like in action?
So strategic communication architecture is going to elevate communication from being just a series of messages into something that's more of leadership infrastructure. Traditional communication focuses on static outputs, who gets what, when they receive it, what method, what frequency. But architecture is a little bit different, focusing on building a dynamic structure that's going to enable better decision making, alignment, and trust throughout the program. It's going to allow that trust to flow intentionally and naturally throughout the program. We see this in feedback loops, escalation pathways, tiered visibility, message discipline, and any delivery method that evolves alongside the program over time. I applied this through my experience when I took over the infection prevention and control program. At the time, I noticed immediately was that it was a legacy system, and it was one manager copying the previous manager, just constantly passing over the standard of operations, no real or adjustment to the current needs or the evolving dynamic of the organization. Communication was there, but just like in many organizations, it was chaotic. It was unclear. Departments didn't necessarily understand the expectations, what was required for compliance. Deliverables were missed, sometimes just completely disregarded. Those are forms of nonverbal communication telling us something. The biggest issue was that no one was truly listening to what those breakdowns were saying. And it was basically telling everyone that communication method, it was failing. So there needed to be some form of adjustment. I rebuilt that communication environment in a very simple but effective way, established a central hub using Microsoft Teams, and that became our architecture, our single source of truth. So information wasn't disjointed. Individuals at the tactical level were able to submit required outputs directly into it. That helped us with two main things. So one, it increased accountability for them and autonomy, and also introduced tiered visibility, automatically updating those metrics for compliance. That allowed both the infection prevention and control team and the executive teams to see what real-time progress looked like across the departments without having to ask for that information. We can access it at any point and at a glance know exactly what the pulse is like. And functional managers as well, they were not having to wait for a report or an email. They were able to see exactly how their departments were performing. So that type of transparency removed the need for top-down communication, and instead built a system where everyone had visibility and ownership. For me, the most important question to ask whenever you're dealing with a situation like that or operating in an environment where things are disjointed is, what do they not know? Because it's not about the person or the team and them not caring about the organization's success, the program's direction, not wanting to do their jobs or do the best that they can, but there's oftentimes pieces of information or context that's missing. As program leaders, we have to identify that gap, and we have to find out how we get them to a point of not understanding or missing pieces of information to being effective assets in that organization, effective task owners. So the outcome in that situation, better communication. We established a rhythm, and compliance was increasing, delinquencies started to drop off. We were able to create that type of environment where we can see the health of the program in real time. A simple way was a color coding system that we used. We used green, red, yellow. Green, I believe that we associated that with those at the tactical level. task owners, operational teams, functional managers, and executive teams. So they were assigned a color and know whenever they access the dashboard, all of the information that's there, they have access to. They can see exactly what the program is like, how it's progressing. However, they know that if they want to hone in on the information they need at their level, they look at the information associated with their color code. So if you're coming in as a green, you know you're looking for the green metrics. You have access to everything else, but it makes it very clear what you should be focusing on so you can be successful in your role at your level. So ultimately, strategic communication architecture, that's what it looks like in practice. And it's not about broadcasting louder, but finding ways that you can engineer an environment where that alignment happens naturally and automatically. Leaders shouldn't have to chase information down. They should be able to build a process where they have clarity without chasing it.
Thank you very much. It's something new for us to learn. We know the communication, stakeholder engagement, as a how and when we should send the communication, but you're talking beyond that, how we can strategically organize our communication in a which is more impactful and bring more better results. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question from my new student. The question is about how has the rise of AI generated content changed or complemented how you will think about designing resilient communication strategy?
So I don't use too much AI, very basic stuff right now. Depending on the field that you're in, those systems aren't always available to us. We spend so much time as program leaders organizing and coordinating and trying to craft messages that we can send out. And that can be very time consuming. When you have AI available to help refine those things, you can spend more time on the strategic part of things and finding ways that you can align the program, align people at different levels rather than crafting these messages and taking so much time to do just that. So AI, it's very beneficial. Oftentimes people are afraid to use it, but it's not about it replacing our jobs. It's about working with it. It's an assistant for us, a refinement tool. And we're so beyond the point of whether or not AI is good for us. It is, but there are also some cons that come with it. At the end of the day, what we should be focusing on now is how are we working with it? When you look at those who are successful in their environments, it's not the ones who are spending hours trying to build a communication plan or weeks trying to build this communication plan. It's the people who understand that AI is there for them to use as a tool. Those mundane, repetitive tasks that they know they can complete, they're using AI to replace it. And they're getting those things done quicker. You have to find ways that you can work with AI and not think of it as replacing your job.
Very nicely you said. Yes, it was a time when we're thinking good is going to be good or bad, and now is we are already living with AI. Whatever we do, whatever is here, we have no choice now. Instead of thinking of writing messages, you can ask some of the work using the chat GPT. One thing is for sure, you don't ask, can you give me some response? You write something as best as you can, then ask the chat GPT or something to refine it. You can ask, hey, can you make it more professional? Can you make it more friendly? Can you make it more approachable? And accordingly, you will be surprised that you get the output you get from that. Wow, I never thought like that.
And a great thing about ChatGPT, it's ever evolving and you can create personas. So if you use ChatGPT heavily in different capacities, maybe as a supervisor, a manager, or to manage things with your family and your personal life, or maybe you're going through something and you're looking to ChatGPT to help mentor you through that. You can ask it to create personas for you. It's like mini profiles. As you're going through things or you need an email generated, you can use that specific persona for that. So there are a lot of great capabilities in there. I think people just have to get beyond being afraid to use AI or thinking that it's dumbing them down or that they're going to become complacent, and finding ways that they can use it to complement what their skills are right now. There are other ways that you can continue to grow, and don't allow the use of AI make you believe that your skill set isn't valid.
Yeah, perfect. Very nicely put together. There are a lot of things I want to learn. While I know the basics of them, most people know basics of them. Actually, giving me idea. Maybe you can have another webinar, and this more hands-on to talk about how to use AI more efficiently.
Yeah.
I think I will look forward to that, and maybe if you have time, organize when we have a sharing of the screen, and you will look at this is how I asked this question. This is how is it changed. This is how I created a persona. And this is how, I mean, I'm getting excited about. I think I'm going to, I know
Yeah,
about a lot about chat, but there are many ways we can benefit from chat, make our lot of things automated.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's just a very basic feature. There are just so many other things out there. Creating documents that you need as a program manager. The AI tools are available to make that a more seamless action.
Exactly. So a lot of repetitive work which you were spending 3 days, 4 days, 5 days to write those documents can be done in a few seconds. Now you focus on other constructive things, building your relationship, communication, and all those things. So in this continuation, let me ask my next question. What practical steps can program leaders take to design a communication architecture that aligns diverse stakeholders groups even when priorities conflicts?
So I think it's very important that the way we approach things is for alignment and not necessarily to you're sharing communication, you're sharing messages. Whether people are actually receiving and truly understanding, that's a different story. That's where strategic communication comes into play. You have a job to try to align teams at different levels, tactical, strategic, operational. One of the hardest things for program leaders is aligning their stakeholders, not just because they're in different roles and different jobs, but they're also working from different assumptions. They have different priorities and facing different pressures, operational pressures. So strategic communication architecture is extremely essential for a program manager in this type of situation. It's about designing the flow of the right information to the right people at the right time. With me managing infection prevention, whenever I had to coordinate standards for compliance, there are different teams that I'm engaging with. We have the clinical departments, various different services that they offer. A sterile processing department is a support feature that interacts with each of them. And then the executive teams. And all of these groups, yes, they have overlapping responsibilities, but they're looking at things through a completely different lens. Clinicians, they're more focused on patient care, speed, and oftentimes they're not taking the time to carry out those infection prevention actions according to the standards. Then we have sterile processing department technicians who are more focused on processes, and sometimes they get tunnel vision and don't understand how their standards are impacting those clinical teams. And then you have executive leadership, they're more focused on metrics, information, and risk mitigation. So they're familiar with the program, but not at the ground level, not a people level, more so numbers and metrics. It's not that people don't care. It's more so that everyone's interpreting these standards through their own filters. We see that audits, they're inconsistent, expectations are unclear, tiered communication rhythm, that's something that needed to be established. So that's what I did. I created alignment, mapped our stakeholders, identified what information needed to get to them, what tasks they needed to own, and how often they needed updates. For the sterile processing teams, they received SOPs, hands-on updates for protocol execution. Clinicians had role-specific guidance communicated at daily huddles or at throughout the monthly updates that they would receive. And this would focus on how infection control standards interacted with their workflows. For our executive leaders, we set up dashboards, get out quarterly reviews so that they can be tied to those performance trends and again have a pulse on how the program is progressing. It removed confusion for us, increased shared ownership, and it kept accountability in view. So instead of these three different teams operating in their own world, they were able to work together and see how their performance impacted the overall health of the program. So for me, if we notice that priorities are competing, it's very important that communication is not also competing. Communication should bring clarity, and that's what strategic communication architecture does. It's not just going to inform teams, It's going to align them, because alignment is more of an active process, whereas informing people can be passive because we don't know what they're actually digesting.
Great. Thank you very much. It's very insightful information. Thank you for that. All right. I'm going to have a poll question if you guys are okay. I encourage everybody to participate. That gives some visibility to us as well. It's going to take only 15 to 30 seconds. Answer it, and that will help us to help you more. Let me bring my first question. Please participate. I can see many of you are already joining programs, or maybe in future. All right. Any more responses? No worries. Let me end the poll. All right. So we do have lots of people who say, yes, I'm doing the exam or preparing for the exam very soon. So later on, I will ask a few more questions. In case you have any questions, clarification, please put on the chat, on the question pad. Happy to bring them to Marvin's attention. All right. So my next question is, what does the most common communication pitfalls in large or complex programs, and how can leaders avoid them?
So I think there are a few to watch out for. The overarching issue is when we mistake activity for alignment. We see that our teams are busy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're aligned. Sometimes that can be a lot of noise. People aren't receiving messages, understanding priorities, timelines, or decisions being made that can misalign them from the goal of the program. In communication in complex programs, it often does get noisy just because of what the dynamics. So there has to be structure, and without, that's going to cause friction. The 4 pitfalls that I would say to watch out for: number 1, over communicating without targeting. If everyone's receiving the same update, nothing's going to feel relevant or exclusive to them. And if they don't feel those things, people don't know how to prioritize because they don't know what truly pertains to them and what they're being held accountable to. You have to use stakeholder tier mapping so that you can identify what is the necessary cadence, what content should we be pushing out to them. You want to make sure that the right person or the right audience is receiving the right message through the right rhythm. Number 2, inconsistent leadership messaging. So even if key leaders or executives have the best intentions, sometimes if they go off script, it can undermine that program and the communication architecture. And some of you might have experienced that. Ultimately, you want to mitigate this by finding a way that you can align the top team, executive leadership, and also all the way down to the tactical levels. An easy way to do that is if there's any key leader speaking on behalf of that program. Remember, you're a program manager overseeing it, but you don't necessarily own that program. It's not about being in control, but it's about finding ways that you get others to support, sponsor, reinforce the message that you're pushing out. So find ways to supply them with talking points or briefing primers, and that's going to do a better job of aligning the message at the top. And then number 3, failure to close the loop. We often encourage our team members to provide feedback, elevate issues, but sometimes we don't always follow up and there's no visible follow through. When it comes to transparency, how things are handled aren't always going to be transparent, but the effects should be transparent. If there are issues being escalated, the pathway should be transparent so people have status updates about where these issues are at. Without that, trust starts to erode and people aren't necessarily going to utilize those pathways for escalation. So you want to build visible response pathways that are built into every communication system. That way the feedback doesn't just flow upward, but it comes right back down. And the 4th one, lack of central source of truth. In an ever-changing and complex environment, there's a lot of information that can easily be scattered around through emails and chats, verbal updates, hallway conversations, and you can lose clarity very fast. So you always want to find ways that you can anchor communication to one accessible hub. For example, if your team is relying solely on Microsoft Teams. However, if you do choose to use different platforms, you have to make the intent of each platform very clear. For example, if you're using email, you have to make it clear to your team that when we use email, it's to communicate that actions need to be taken. that there are things that you're requesting of your teammates, reports, updates. You need them to complete something. If Microsoft Teams is being used, you need to communicate that that is solely for updates, information only, things about the direction of the program, the vision. If you're using a group chat or group text, maybe that's just for short notice reminders or updates pertaining to that day, but not for future events. It's completely fine to use different forms and platforms of communication. However, it has to be very clear that they serve different purposes and the intent of using those platforms vary.
Very nice. For different communication, different messages, you have different media you may use is to communicate, to engage with them, to help them, or to get your work done. Thank you very much for this. Appreciate it. What KPIs do you use to check whether a communication architecture is effective?
I think it's very hard to use KPIs to do that. What I do, and everyone's different, anyone who does have something that they feel is a very useful method, I encourage them to also share that in the chat. Not necessarily KPIs, maybe some form of KPI can come from that, but feedback through surveys that you send out routinely to your teams to gauge where they're at, how they feel about communication, and whether or not they're aligned. You don't have to flat out ask, do you feel like you are aligned with the program, but more so gauging their understanding about their role and the tasks that they've been assigned. How they respond to that's going to give you a better idea of whether or not at their level they truly feel aligned. KPIs vary across organizations, and there's not really just one to use. It depends on the environment that you're operating in and the dynamic of your team. But if you're trying to gauge something that is not easily put into a metric, you want to hear from those people directly about their experiences. Doing quick surveys that are routine at certain milestones can be beneficial in capturing that information.
Great, thank you very much. My way of understanding if you are really engaged or not, if when I see some smiley faces or some messages on my question pad, or participation in the polls, or asking questions. So please do that. That shows that you guys are really engaged and listening, and you could make a difference to this webinar.
And another way I hit on it briefly is looking for the nonverbals. So they're not always formal KPIs, but the nonverbal things. If deadlines are being missed, if people are not on target, if they're not understanding things, that tells you a lot about your communication environment. Those are metrics that you have to use. So it's not always those tangible things that we're looking for, but we have to be very in tune about how our teams are performing. And those tell us a lot.
And if you are in the physical environment, where you can actually start seeing their body language, and other things can also give you some idea. Like if you're in a meeting and how many people are playing with the phone, how many people are actively listening, asking questions, that give you a clue. Or somebody looking at time again, maybe you're so boring. Not you, maybe I'm boring. Yes.
Agreed.
Thank you. Good question, by the way. Thank you. All right, my next question to you. How can storytelling and message discipline shape stakeholder confidence, especially during...
So those are two very powerful tools for a program leader to leverage, especially if they are working in an environment where there's a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty. Storytelling is going to give meaning, allow people to connect to something and transform data into context. It's going to help stakeholders understand where they fit into the bigger picture. And message discipline, that's focused on consistency. It's going to ensure that no matter who's delivering the message, it's consistent all the way through, whether it's a team lead, executive team, program manager, that story remains consistent and the direction is clear. In moments of ambiguity, people aren't always looking for facts. Like I said, they want something that they can connect to. It makes it easier for them to digest and stay motivated and on task. If people will start creating their own narrative, and oftentimes that narrative can turn into something negative or be misaligned from the program. Storytelling is going to fill that void and it's going to anchor your program so that there's a shared purpose and oftentimes offering emotional logic whenever situational logic is either absent or still evolving. When it comes to message discipline, you can have the best story in the world. However, if it's delivered inconsistently or through side conversations, that message is diluted and things go off script, then it can really disrupt whatever it is that you're trying to communicate. So you want to make sure your messages are repeatable, aligned, and from top down, bottom up, they can be reinforced. In the infection prevention program, we were going through a change in compliance policy, and I wanted to shift from focusing on restrictions and what people couldn't do to being more about protection. We positioned it as caring for the caregiver. Yes, it's something they have to do so that they're ensuring that there's a safe environment that they're creating, not only for their patient, but themselves. But oftentimes they can interpret it as just another task, another thing on our checklist added to our busy schedules, but it's how you frame it. We position them in the middle and say that this change is focused on caring for you as the caregiver. That's something that's going to be more impactful. And that was able to be carried through leadership meetings, team huddles, hallway conversations, email updates. It helped us as the program leaders to battle that resistance that sometimes comes with change or additional standards that people have to follow. So instead of it being another thing on a checklist, it became a value-driven change. When it's done correctly, storytelling and message discipline, it's not just going to inform, it's going to stabilize your teams. It's going to help advance and mobilize that message and humanize the program, especially when people are in a position where things are uncertain and they're looking for something that they can trust in.
Storytelling, the way you pass the message is very important. If you put a right story, right time, it can have a bigger impact. What is the expectation of program managers to develop strategic communication framework, and what are the best practices? What is the expectation of program managers to develop strategic communication framework? Is there any expectation like that? And what are the best practices?
How would you interpret that question, Dharam? Elaborate a little bit more what you're looking for.
And the question coming from George, what is the expectation from the program managers around the development of strategic communication framework? Do you think there's expectation around that for program managers to develop such thing, or just normal communication plan?
No, I think it's 100% a responsibility of a program manager to develop that framework. Developing the framework is more of an ongoing thing, and it's not just a one-time focus. Oftentimes during the formulation stages, we're going to build a framework, and it's more a formality. It doesn't mean we're not going to continue to prioritize those things we identify in the communication plan at that time, but it does serve as a formality for the executive team to say, great, we have something, we can move forward. It's the program manager's responsibility as we progress through those phases to find where we need to build in milestones so that we can pause and reassess what changes need to be made to the communication efforts. Because what you need to communicate during the formulation stages, that's going to change when you enter the next stage of execution. And that's very different in the stage of closing because they're going to demand different things of you. Whereas in one, you might be focusing on setting expectations and providing a vision. The next, you're focusing on benefit realization and making sure that people know what is expected of them and that they have the resources to do. And in another stage, you're focusing on reflection and finding ways that we can end the program in a good way so that the organization continues to benefit from that. I think that is an expectation that a program manager knows that whatever they create at the beginning doesn't just stay that way throughout the life cycle of the program. We have a responsibility to reassess at multiple points so we can ensure the success.
Thank you for the very good question. Now I'm getting a lot of questions. Let me continue with my next question and give you some breathing time as well. Have you seen data visualization, dashboard, AI tools transform communication impact in program, and how?
all of those things. They're all going to be beneficial to a manager at any level, program, portfolio, project, any person who is in a leadership role. All of these things can be very beneficial. It's just going to make you that much more effective as a leader, because you can't be everywhere at once and you can't do everything for everyone. So you're going to need assistance. And these are great tools to use so that you can ensure your communication is consistent. I'm going to focus more on data visualization. If you do it right, a well-designed visual, it's not just going to display information, but because of how it's built, it's going to help accelerate understanding. It's going to focus decision-making and make sure that everything is aligned. Whenever I took over infection prevention, one of those first priorities I had was to shift away from static reports and communication summaries, because sometimes it can be a lot and no one's truly digesting it or understanding it. So instead, built a visual dashboard, and we talked about the color coding system, but this showed real-time metrics by department. We used the red, yellow, green. Everyone knew based on the color assigned to them, whenever they access this dashboard, what exactly they need to be looking for per that color. The impact was immediate. Functional managers can see exactly whether things were completed or overdue within their departments. Executives, they didn't need some lengthy report. They were able at a glance to get a pulse of where that program was at, the health of the program. But what makes it work isn't just the visuals, it's behind it, the thought that goes into what exactly you're designing, and you have to be intentional about it. You can't just report data, but you need something that's going to reflect actions that have been taken, actions that you need to take, priorities, and accountability at the different levels that they serve in. So everyone was able to see how the program was succeeding, where the risk was at, without having to ask. And I think that effective data visualization, really any use of any of these tools, is going to make the complex more intuitive and digestible.
Great, thank you. I will take a question. I will take another question. What features should a communication management system or portfolio management information have to support strategic communication architecture?
That's a good question.
What features should a communication management system or PMIS, portfolio management information system, have to support strategic communication architecture?
It should have escalation pathways that are clear, opportunities to assign responsibility and accountability to different levels. I probably want to reattack that and maybe jot it down and then respond to them, because there's a lot that can go into that, and I want to make sure that I provide them with something of value.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, we'll come back to you with the answer. Maybe we can talk in the next class, or Marvin can send the information to me and I will pass it to you. Thank you. All right. What changes in communication strategy are essential as program moves from planning through execution to closure?
As we're going through the program, we talked about it in the last question, but different things are going to be required of you. You're going to have to be able to adjust, but it's an intentional adjustment as you progress through the different phases. With the formulation stage, you're focusing on creating a vision, setting those expectations. So you want to build energy. What you do at the beginning is very important, because it's going to set the stage for the rest of the program throughout the next phases. You want everyone aligned early on. As it moves through the execution stage, that's where we're moving into project and program management, supporting decisions, establishing rhythm, the dashboards, the escalation pathways, kickoffs, engagement sessions, so that you can build energy and establish ownership. And then the closing stage, that's all about reflecting and identifying what the highlights are, celebrating those wins. You want to close out that program. You want to make sure that it ends well and that the organization knows what's coming next for sustainability. So there's planning for the transition of that program as it closes out and transferring to those operational teams. Across the three phases, I would focus on three principles. Number one, adjust your cadence. Early in the stages might require dialogue, a lot of conversations. In the execution stage, we're focusing on changing our rhythm. In the closure stage, we're focused on reflection. Tailor it by tier. Executives might need a summary report. Operatives might need task level guidance. And stakeholders are looking for clarity, progress, and outcomes. Lastly, reinforce the purpose. Tasks are going to shift and phases are going to change, but it should always tie back to the mission. So your approach and how you're going to communicate in those different stages, you will adjust. However, the message that you're sending needs to be consistent. The message and the mission, neither of those necessarily change. We have to communicate alongside the program that's evolving, and we have to evolve with it and how it is that we're communicating so that we can build confidence, reduce that friction, and everyone can move forward together.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, yes, communication strategy keep changing from the early stage when you're planning, you're putting together strategies, communicating more with the senior executives, and when you're planning, you are communicating with the wider audience. When execution, now the people are working on the project programs, you start communicating them. And when you're closing, yeah, obviously different way of communicating. Now showing what we achieved, what we have not achieved, and why on retrospective and every lesson learned, all these things. My next question is, how can executive sponsorship strengthen or unintentionally undermine a program's communication architecture?
So, like I mentioned, when you are a program leader, you often get caught up in this is my program. To a certain extent, yes. However, to manage that program, so we have to understand where that authority lies. Executive sponsorship can make or break a program. If it's done correctly, it can amplify a message, but if it's misaligned, it can cause damage not only to that program or by delaying it, but also the credibility of that program leader. I experienced that the hard way when managing infection prevention. So you become confident when you start to see that, wow, I've been very impactful as a program leader and I've established myself and I believe that I have the authority to carry out things. But sometimes you got to take a step back and remember that you're there to further the direction of the organization through the program, and you should be looking for sponsorship and reinforcement of the messages you push out. When I took over that role, there was an issue that I identified and it impacted the entire organization. So I pushed out a slew of messages about upcoming changes. They were important. I did my due diligence. I did everything I needed to do. I sent them out broadly, but to me, I'm seeing it as being proactive. Two mistakes were made. First, I didn't push them out to the right audience in the right order. And two, I was speaking on behalf of the executive leadership team without getting their buy-in or giving them the opportunity to set the tone. Even though I was doing the right thing and my intentions were solid, it did cause some confusion and misalignment. So those executive leaders, they didn't get a chance to communicate that change themselves. And I unintentionally got ahead of myself and their authority. And that is going to create hesitation. In that situation, yes, it caused hesitation in my role, not in my credibility, but more so the fact that it looked like I was bypassing governance. So from that experience, what I learned is I'm always going to do quick stakeholder pulse checks. It doesn't matter if it's in my area of expertise or if I'm staying within my own lane of authority. I still take the time to allow executive messaging to go first because I want them to set a foundation, framing their voice as the strategic lead so that when my technical guidance is pushed out, it's reinforced and not conflicting or deterring the message we're trying to push. So that one change allowed me to rebuild trust because the messages were much more effective. That organization was receiving cohesive messages and not necessarily messages or narratives that were overlapping. The lesson in that is executive sponsorship is not just about approval. It's not about who's in charge. It's not about power, but more so sequencing and tone setting and message reinforcement. Whenever our communication is architected with sponsorship in mind, how we can always foster sponsorship. It's not just going to flow and inform, but it's going to align and resonate beyond what we've intended.
Okay, thank you. If you could share one communication principle every program leader should live by, what should it be and why?
Pretty much the theme that's been consistent throughout this whole Q&A, but communication to align and not to inform. That's what I would push out. It's easy for us to get caught up in reporting things, coordinating, checking boxes, and making updates. Alignment is where we're going to experience real momentum. If we're informing, that's a passive strategy. But if we're aligning, that's active, and more people are invested in that. It's very intentional, and that's what's going to move that program forward. So in the military, we have the concepts of C2, also known as command and control, versus mission. Command and control is very much like traditional forms of communication, where the environment is known, there's a central leader who makes decisions, and they're going to tell their teams, this is what we're doing, how we're doing it, go out and do it, no questions asked. Mission command values empowerment and autonomy, and it focuses on intent. The teams that we're pushing out there, they're the ones who are on the ground. They're the ones with the best intel about what's happening. So if anyone's going to make a decision, we need it to be those people that are deployed to those areas, not a leader who is somewhere else who doesn't really have eyes on what's happening. It's very important that up front in the planning stages, the way you communicate the intent to your team is important because you want to ensure they have understanding. So as they deploy to those areas, they can make sound decisions. It's a much better situation when you as a leader aren't even doing anything and your teams are continuing on their own time at their own levels to advance the program, versus being in a situation of command and control where these are static traditional communication plans, and for the program to advance, it relies on people coming to you to get information. You want, even when you're not active, for that program to continue to move forward. I think that's a very good example to put into perspective the nuance of traditional communication and strategic communication as an infrastructure. That means it has to be intentional, and it can't just be something you tack on at the end after you make a decision. These are just a few things I'd offer. Number one, don't confuse clarity with control. If you are aligning your teams, if you are making the intent known, that is establishing architecture. And good architecture is going to allow people to take ownership. If they can see it and understand it, they can contribute to it. Give them that trust. Number two, let executive leadership set the tone. Then let the communication reinforce it. Messaging needs to cascade and benefit that individual, that program leader. Number three, build feedback into your structure, not just the culture. Don't wait for people to speak up. Design a communication system that expects people to speak up, but they do have to feel valued. If people aren't feeling valued or connected to the mission, it doesn't matter how much you expect of them. They're not going to be motivated to follow through. Number four, make your communication evolve with your program. If your approach, the messages that you pushed out haven't changed since the planning stages, you're probably behind. And you want to take time to intentionally recalibrate. That requires you building in milestones into the life cycle of your program to say, perfect, everything's going well, but recalibrate and see where we need to adjust before we move into the next stage. That doesn't have to happen just between phases, but it can happen as stage gates before you move through different periods of those stages. And lastly, number five, architect trust. Communication touch points, they're either going to build or erode trust. As a program leader, you have to own that responsibility. So it's not about who talks the most, who's the loudest, who's the most confident in communication, but it's about who can build systems that can last and ensure that people move in the same direction, even when the environment or the terrain or the dynamics change.
Thank you very much. While we over time, I still have two audience questions. I want to make sure I do justice to those questions as well. They have taken time to write during registration. All right, let me take this last two questions from audience, which already have it. How does one know which story to tell for influencing, inspiring, and driving clarity? Should they?
How does one know?
Yeah, should they be heard from third party or from your experience? It's a good question.
I think that they should come from your experience. That's always going to be the most impactful. You know the
Yeah,
story, it's closer to you, you're going to be able to deliver it. And retelling someone's story can get a little iffy. It depends on the situation. I think it's best to be in the business of telling stories that you've experienced. If you can connect with them, others are going to feel it and connect with it. That's ultimately the goal. If it's disingenuous, people are going to be able to tell when you're telling a story about business versus a story that truly means something to you.
yeah.
I think it depends on the situation at hand.
One question I have is, can we get a recording of this webinar? Definitely, this webinar, recording of this webinar will be shared. A link will be shared to the people who register, who joining today and who registered as well. And soon, in a few days, maybe a few weeks, you will also see that on LinkedIn or other places as well. But you should get this invite in your email in next, I don't want to put in the pressure, but next 5 days or 7 days. Thank you. My last question, which is, please advise on how to communicate upward to your own organization to make clear that you need more resources and better organization in terms of work processes when you need to obtain their buy-in about the budget, and therefore from senior leadership.
I think that is all about what you're presenting to them. You can't just ask for more resources, but you have to paint a picture for them. That's very important that you provide them with numbers. That's a given. We're going to need some metrics to operate off of, but we have to quantify how you're in this position. It has to mean something to them. Recently, what we experienced with one of our dental clinics is they weren't meeting their KPIs. The metrics were off. Locally, our leadership team is seeing that they're off target. However, what we needed to report to them, because we don't have the resources to perform at a higher capacity, we don't have the manpower to do. So what we decided to do is get a little bit creative. Locally, looking at how we're performing against the expectations, we weren't meeting the mark. But what we did was we looked across the board at all of the different peer clinics in different regions of the world and compared ourselves to them. And we learned that with just 2 or 3 of our dentists performing dentistry, one was outproducing 3 of the dentists at another facility. That was consistent when we compared against our peer clinics. We also looked at the metrics and the average. Although we were not meeting the mark, we were far above the average compared to peer clinics, even some larger than ours that were not meeting the mark. When we provided them with a report letting them know, yes, we can't meet this expectation, here's why, we were able to get creative and not just saying we don't have enough people. There's something more that we can provide. We're painting a picture that this is a struggle happening across different regions, not just with us, but even considering that, we are outperforming them. The metric is a little out of sight. The metrics we should be aspiring to should change with the current environment. From that perspective, we're actually outperforming the target because we're outperforming all of these peer clinics. It's about getting creative and painting a picture for them so that storytelling, you got to paint a picture and storytell so they can really experience what it is that you're going through. Sometimes you're going to ask for things that there's just no way we can support. But I think there are ways we can navigate without this or that, either or that bullies you into a corner. Oftentimes there are opportunities for us to compromise, even if we're not receiving what we were looking for. We have to find what elements we can compromise. Leaders are oftentimes faced with so many decisions, your senior leaders, and they don't have time to sift through all the details of everything. If you can put it the bottom line up front so they know what the situation is, provide recommendations and show them how you're going to execute it, that kind of saves them the work. They're more inclined to actually say, perfect, let's press forward. It's what you do to plan and present for them without them having to be so involved because they have 8,000 other issues to look into.
Great stuff. Thank you very much for so much insightful information. Appreciate it. It is so awesome. I know getting ready for this kind of session where I have lots of questions, people asking questions, and the way you presented yourself giving your insight and a lot of learning today. Really appreciate this contribution. Thank you, Marvin.
Of course. I definitely do want to take that question, though, if you can get that to me, the one that we didn't get a chance to answer fully, and I want to provide a more targeted answer for that person.
Perfect. I will share that question with you, and
Okay.
please come back to me. I will share with my friend here. Thank you. I like to appreciate all of you guys to stay up to, even though we are 15 minutes late, but you still here for your this. I gave a discount coupon just in case you are looking for any services or any product, except that we don't have a coupon code, but you can save 10% starting up. If you're joining personal mentor program, $250, or depends on the program. I also shared the link I already shared previously. So this is where you're going to see the YouTube link where this video will be put together in a few days, and all the previous 300 plus videos also. Please go and look into that, subscribe, and you get to know more about the future webinar recordings, and keep learning. Thank you. Appreciate your coming and learning. Looking forward to December. I'm going to talk to this lady from UAE about another interesting topic. You're going to see some comps very soon on LinkedIn and other places, so you can start joining as early as possible. Thank you very much, Marvin, and everybody else. It was great to have you here, and look forward to building relationship and doing more and more better things.
I do want to say thank you to everyone who attended, listened, and took the time to join us today. I hope that what I shared sparked something new, maybe provided some new insights, a new approach, mindset, understanding, whatever it may be. If something did resonate with you or you have a question, I'd love to continue that dialogue. Please feel free to reach out to me, LinkedIn, connect with me. I'm always open to learning and growing. I think that's a responsibility we have as program leaders. We operate in different environments or different experiences, and the more well-rounded we could be, the more successful our organizations are. So yeah, I encourage the sharing of information and knowledge. So please reach out to me. Let's connect.
All right. To book my time, you can always say talk to Dharam.com, www.talktodharam.com. And if you are not connected on LinkedIn, please send me a request. I will be happy to connect with you. As Marvin said, let's continue to learn and grow ourselves and help our organizations. Thank you all. Thank you, Marvin. I will see you in my next webinar. Take care. All the best. Bye now.
Bye.